In the last couple of weeks, both Delaware and Minnesota have legalized same-sex marriage, the latest in a number of states. In fact, now there are 12 states overall that have approved same-sex marriage. And this certainly would make one assume that attitudes towards same-sex marriage have changed and are changing across the country. Well, indeed they have, particularly from a long-range perspective. Look at the graph there. If we go back to 1996, when Gallup first asked this question about legalizing same-sex marriage, we had only 27% of the country that approved it. The numbers inched up some over time and moved up and down, but not a lot. In fact, we didn't cross that 50% majority threshold until just a few years ago. And now we've updated it, of course, frequently. And for the last 3 years in a row, we've had 50% or higher of Americans saying they approve same-sex marriage, including 53% this year in our annual May moral values poll. So we are at the point now, although not continuing to accelerate, at least over the last year or two, where we have a majority of Americans who approve. There are big differences, of course, by subgroup on this issue. Look at politics for a moment. My colleague Jeff Jones split out 1996 attitudes by party against 2013 attitudes by party, and look at the change there. A lot of it has come among Democrats, quite a bit among independents, but very little change among Republicans. That's very important to emphasize again that the big change has come in Democrats and independents, much more likely now to favor same-sex marriage. Republicans have moved much less. They were at 16% approval back in 1996, they being Republicans, and now that's moved to 26%. But that change is much less than the 36-point change that we see among Democrats. Now, the other demographic distinction that I would point out for you is age. You hear that discussed a lot. Young people certainly much more likely than those who are older to approve same-sex marriage. Here in 2013, those numbers are 70% among those under 30, down to only 41% among those 65 plus. But look at the change since 1996. Unlike the case for parties, the change over time in age has been fairly uniform. In other words, the differences were there in 1996 between young views and older people's views, and the differences are there now in 2013. The only difference is a rising tide has lifted all ships. All of these age groups are more likely to support same-sex marriage now than they used to, which is a quite interesting phenomenon. All in all, though, just to repeat the bottom line finding, a majority, 53% of Americans in our most recent polls say yes, they favor legalized same-sex marriage. I'm Dr. Frank Newport, Gallup Editor-in-Chief.